Kale tightened the straps on his thick thermal coat, feeling the icy wind bite through the layers. The blizzard had come suddenly, stronger than any he had ever seen on this planet. Jagged snowflakes whipped past the small settlement, and the pale sunlight was swallowed entirely by the swirling white storm. Kale's hut, a modest structure built from insulated panels and reinforced alloys, groaned under the pressure of the howling wind. Inside, he could feel the warmth slowly draining away as the cold crept through tiny cracks. He had been out scouting for supplies when the storm struck. The planet, known as Viralia, was notorious for sudden weather changes, and humans had only recently started colonizing its icy northern regions. Kyle had been chosen for this mission because of his experience surviving extreme environments. He had packed enough rations and fuel to last 3 days, but a storm like this was unpredictable. Kale crouched near the small heater and stirred a pot of melting snow into drinking water. His eyes scanned the small interior of the hut. A few cots, some basic tools, and his communications array. Everything was in place, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that the storm might bring more than just snow. He had lived through many blizzards, but instinct told him something unusual was coming. A sudden crash of snow against the outer wall made Kyle stiffen. His hand instinctively went to the small plasma pistol he kept near the heater. Then with a loud slam, the door burst open. The wind rushed in, carrying snow, ice, and a figure. Kyle jumped to his feet, his eyes widening. Through the swirling white, he could just make out the shape of a person, or something like a person. The figure staggered, dripping wet, and fell to its knees inside the hut. Kale's heart raced. He had seen many dangerous creatures on Viralia, but nothing like this. The being slowly raised its head. Its eyes were enormous and luminous, glowing faintly in the dim light of the hut. Its skin shimmered faintly, almost like frost reflecting the sun. Long, delicate limbs ended in fingers that seemed too long to be natural, and bioluminescent markings ran along its shoulders and neck. The creature's breathing was quick and shallow. It trembled violently, not just from the cold but from fear. Kale froze. He had faced predators, hostile aliens, and extreme weather, but never had he seen someone so terrified, especially someone who didn't even know him. The alien's gaze locked onto Kale, and for a moment, the room felt impossibly small. The storm outside became a distant roar as Kale realized how vulnerable this creature was. Slowly, he lowered his hand from the pistol. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, his voice calm but firm. "You're safe here." The alien recoiled slightly, hissing in a language Kale didn't understand. Its eyes darted around, wary and distrustful. Kyle noticed the communicator device on its chest flicker briefly, but it didn't activate fully. Kyle took a careful step closer, keeping his movements slow. "I'm human," he said. "My name is Kale. You can trust me." The creature made a sharp, high-pitched sound and flinched. Kale realized that the alien had never seen a human before. Its fear wasn't personal. It was instinctive. He had read about similar reactions in alien species, but witnessing it firsthand was different. The air between them was tense, electric with uncertainty. Kale reached for the small heater and turned it toward the alien, hoping the warmth would soothe it. He grabbed a spare thermal blanket and draped it over its trembling shoulders. The alien flinched again but didn't flee. Instead, it curled slightly as if trying to shrink from both the cold and the stranger in front of it. Kale crouched a few feet away, keeping his hands visible. "You're safe," he repeated. "The storm. It's dangerous outside. You shouldn't be out there alone." The alien's eyes softened slightly, but its body remained tense. Kale could see frost clinging to its hair-like strands, and its breathing was rapid. He took a deep breath. Communication would be hard, but humans had always excelled at adaptability. He grabbed some food rations, dried protein cubes and nutrient gel, and placed them gently near the alien. It sniffed suspiciously but didn't eat. Kyle realized he would have to earn its trust slowly. He sat down on a cot opposite the creature, maintaining eye contact but keeping his posture relaxed. The blizzard outside raged on. Snow slammed against the walls and the small hut creaked under the pressure. Kyle poured some melted snow into a cup and held it near the alien. "Drink. It will help," he said softly. The alien hesitated, then took the cup with delicate fingers and sipped cautiously. Kyle nodded. Small victories mattered. Minutes passed in tense silence. Kyle studied the alien closely. Its features were both alien and strangely beautiful. Its eyes held intelligence and fear in equal measure. The markings on its skin glowed faintly, shifting colors like an emotion display. Kyle wondered what kind of life this being had before the storm forced it here. Finally, the alien made a noise, a low, almost melodic sound that seemed like a question. Kyle shook his head. "I don't understand, but it's okay. I'll figure it out." The creature tilted its head, observing him. It seemed to weigh the risk of staying versus leaving into the storm. Its eyes flicked to the door, then back to Kale. The tension in the room was thick, yet Kale felt a flicker of hope. Humans had survived countless dangerous situations through intelligence, empathy, and courage. Perhaps he could show this alien the same qualities that had allowed humanity to endure and thrive in the harshest environments. Kyle reached for a small tablet and drew a simple symbol, a circle for safety, a line for danger, and pointed at the door. Then he drew another circle and pointed to himself. The alien watched intently, its large eyes scanning the drawing. Slowly, it began to understand. Kyle represented safety. The alien let out a quiet sound, almost like a sigh. Kyle smiled, careful not to move too fast. "Good," he said. "You're safe now." The storm showed no sign of weakening. Outside, snow whipped across the icy plains, obliterating footprints in seconds. Kyle knew that leaving the alien to fend for itself would be fatal. Even a fully equipped human would struggle in these conditions, let alone a creature unfamiliar with the environment. Kale had faced many challenges in his life, but the responsibility he felt now was different. He wasn't just surviving, he was protecting a life unlike any he had ever known. Hours passed. Kale worked quietly, tending to the heater, melting snow, and offering small amounts of food. The alien remained cautious, but it no longer flinched at his presence. By evening, the hut was warmer and the creature's trembling slowed. Kale felt a sense of accomplishment. Trust was growing. Slowly but surely, Kale wondered about the alien's home planet, about the hunters or dangers that might have driven her here. He wondered if other humans or aliens would see her as a threat. But none of that mattered at the moment. Right now she needed warmth, safety, and understanding, and Kale would provide it. As the blizzard howled outside, Kale realized that this encounter, unexpected, dangerous, and strange, was also an opportunity. An opportunity to show what humans were truly capable of. Not just survival, but empathy, intelligence, and courage. He had faced the harshest environments, the deadliest predators, and the most difficult challenges. And now, he was facing something entirely new. A chance to bridge the gap between species, to show an alien the best of humanity. The alien shifted slightly under the blanket, eyes never leaving Kale. For the first time, Kale saw something beyond fear, curiosity. Perhaps after this storm, something new could begin. Outside, the wind screamed, snow blinding the horizon. Inside, a human and an alien sat together, separated by fear but slowly drawing closer through understanding. And in that small hut, on a frozen planet at the edge of human expansion, hope began to glow like the faint light of the alien's markings, a promise of survival, friendship, and a glimpse of humanity's enduring spirit. The storm outside had not let up, but inside Kale's small hut there was a fragile calm. The alien, whose name Kale had not yet learned, sat curled under the blanket, her glowing markings dimmed, pulsing faintly as if responding to her emotions. Kale poured himself a cup of melted snow and sipped quietly, careful not to make sudden movements. He studied her. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. Her skin had an iridescent shimmer, changing slightly with the light. Her limbs were long and graceful, but her posture was tight, defensive. Kale realized her fear was not personal. It was instinctive. Every movement he made had to be slow, deliberate, and gentle. "Do you understand me?" he asked softly, his voice echoing slightly against the metal walls. The alien tilted her head and a high, melodic noise escaped her throat. Kale frowned. He didn't understand the sound, but he could tell it carried meaning. A question, perhaps, or an expression of confusion. Kale's mind raced. Communication would be difficult. He had no universal translator that could decode alien vocal patterns, but humans had always been good at learning through gestures, signs, and patience. That had been one of the reasons humanity survived where others might fail. He gestured to himself, then pointed at her. He held up one finger. I am Kale. You safe here. Not danger. The alien watched him, her glowing eyes blinking slowly. After a moment, she raised her hand and pointed at the door, then back at Kale. Kale nodded. She understood the concept of safety, but only partially. Outside danger waited in the form of the blizzard, but also, Kale suspected, hunters or enemies from her own world. Kale moved to a small storage shelf and pulled down a few dried rations, placing them gently near her. Food, he said, pointing to it. Eat, warm, strong. The alien hesitated, then reached out with delicate fingers, picking up a protein cube. She sniffed it, then tasted it carefully. Her eyes widened at the unfamiliar flavor, and she made a small, approving noise. Kale smiled. Progress. Small steps, but progress nonetheless. As she ate, Kale noticed her communicator device flickering faintly, attempting to connect to something or someone. He understood then that she was likely being pursued. She had come here not just for warmth, but to escape danger. The realization sent a shiver down his spine. Kyle was used to harsh weather, predators, and hostile terrain, but this was something different. Someone or something was hunting her across a frozen planet, and she had nowhere to turn. Kale reached slowly into his bag and pulled out a small tablet. On it, he began to draw simple symbols. A circle for safety, jagged lines for danger, a simple figure for Kale, and a small hut for shelter. He pointed to the drawings and then to the alien, repeating, "Safe, here, not danger." The alien's glowing markings pulsed slightly faster. She tilted her head, studying the symbols. Slowly, she raised a slender hand and pointed at Kale, then at herself, then at the circle representing safety. She understood. It was a breakthrough, small but significant. Communication, though limited, was beginning. Kale nodded encouragingly. Yes, understand. Good. They sat in silence for a few minutes, listening to the storm's roar outside. Kale's mind raced with questions. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why was she being hunted? And most importantly, could he protect her until the storm passed? The alien shifted slightly, and Kale noticed the way her body reacted to warmth. She instinctively moved closer to the heater, her limbs tense but slowly relaxing. He realized she was learning, adapting, like humans. Humans thrived because they could think, learn, and change in response to danger. And here was an alien, frightened and unprepared, beginning to do the same. Kale decided to try something risky. He reached out a hand, palm open, toward her. Friend, he said simply. The alien flinched but did not move away. Slowly, hesitantly, she reached out and placed one of her cold, delicate fingers on his hand. The connection was brief, but it was enough. Trust was growing, fragile but real. Her communicator flickered again. Kale noticed the pattern. It was trying to contact her people or perhaps alert the hunters. He quickly unplugged the device from her chest. The alien made a startled sound and looked at him, eyes wide. Kale shook his head. No danger. Not now. Storm, here, safe. She stared at him for a long moment, then finally relaxed. It was clear she had no choice but to trust him for now. Kale smiled. Humans survived by thinking ahead, by acting when others hesitated, and by showing courage when fear was strongest. He would demonstrate all of those things to her. Hours passed. Kale tended the heater, melted more snow for water, and offered more rations. The alien began to mimic some of his actions, sipping water, moving closer to the heater, curling under the blanket. She was cautious but learning. Kale realized that adaptation was a universal trait. Intelligence and courage were not unique to humans, but humans had a particular way of surviving, with empathy, planning, and perseverance. Night fell, though it was hard to tell on a planet where blizzards swallowed sunlight entirely. The alien sat quietly on the cot, her glowing markings dimmed to soft pulses. Kale moved to the small window and looked out at the frozen plains. Snow drifted in endless white waves, and he could see no sign of other life. But he knew danger was near. Whoever or whatever was hunting this alien could not be far behind. Kale returned to the cot and sat across from her. "You tell name?" he asked. The alien hesitated. She made a sound that was melodic but broken, as if struggling to form the correct pronunciation. Then she held up her hand, displaying a series of small symbols on her palm. Kale squinted. It looked like Liara. He nodded. "Liara," he said, smiling. "Good, Liara safe. Here." Liara's glowing eyes flickered brighter for a moment, almost like acknowledgement. She had never spoken to a human before, but she understood that he meant no harm. For the first time, Kale saw a flicker of relief on her face. The storm outside continued to howl, but inside the hut something else was happening. Liara was beginning to see the human as more than a strange, dangerous creature. She was seeing him as a protector, a problem solver, and most surprisingly, a friend. Kyle spoke slowly, pointing to himself, then to her, then to the heater. "Warm, food, water, safe, Kyle help." He repeated the gestures several times. Liara watched closely, then nodded once, her glowing markings pulsing steadily. Communication, though limited, was working. By early morning, the storm had not fully passed, but Liara's fear had lessened. She no longer flinched at every movement, and she accepted the food and water Kale offered. She even mimicked some of his actions, moving closer to the heater and curling her limbs for warmth. It was a small victory, but in the harsh environment of Virilia, small victories mattered. Kyle felt a sense of pride. Humanity survived because of adaptability, empathy, and courage. He had used all three traits tonight, not to conquer but to protect. And it was working. Liara, once terrified of him, was beginning to trust. Suddenly, Liara's communicator flickered again, and a high-pitched alarm tone sounded. Kyle froze. The storm had not kept all dangers away. He moved quickly, unplugging the device once more. Liara looked at him, eyes wide. He shook his head. "Not now. Safe here. Later. Solve." She hesitated, then seemed to accept his decision. Kale realized something important. Trust was not just about keeping her alive in the moment. It was about proving that humans could be relied upon, that they could be clever, brave, and caring even in the worst situations. The sun, or what passed for sunlight on this blizzard-filled planet, finally began to pierce the clouds. Outside, snow swirled in white waves, but inside the hut was warm. Kale and Liara sat together, separated by language but connected by trust. It was fragile, but it existed, Kale smiled. Humans had always survived by showing courage, intelligence, and kindness. Tonight he had done the same for an alien being who had never seen a human before. And slowly, Liara was beginning to understand that humans were more than predators. They were survivors, helpers, and in some cases friends. The blizzard was not yet over, but Kale knew they had made it through the first night. Tomorrow they would face new challenges, perhaps even the hunters that pursued Liara. But for now there was warmth, safety, and understanding. And in that small hut on the frozen plains of Virelia, a human and an alien had taken the first steps toward trust, friendship, and a shared survival that neither had expected.